It doesn't happen all at once. One day your children are asking for your advice on everything, from how to cook a roast to how to raise their own kids. The next, you find yourself sitting at the dinner table, watching them explain life to you as if you've never lived it. You try to offer a suggestion, a piece of hard-won wisdom, and they smile, but brush it off. You know that smile. It's polite, a little patronizing. It says, thanks, but times have changed. And just like that, your words carry less weight. If you're a parent over 60, you've probably felt this shift. It can feel like your voice, once so central to your family's decisions, is now more background noise. You're not alone, and you're not imagining things. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this happens and how to gently but powerfully turn it around. Because respect isn't about raising your voice or asserting control. It's about reclaiming your presence, wisdom, and dignity in a world that sometimes forgets the value of age. Let's start by acknowledging the reality. Many adult children genuinely love their parents, but unconsciously start treating them more like elderly dependents than wise elders. This often comes from a well-meaning place. They worry about your health. They want to protect you. But in doing so, they may infantilize you, taking over decisions, talking over you, even rolling their eyes when you bring up the way things used to be. But here's the truth. Respect is not a gift. It's a response. And it begins with how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you listen, and how you make your presence felt in your adult child's world. Think about the last time your child dismissed something you said. Maybe it was about how they're raising their kids, or how they're managing their finances. Maybe you were right, maybe you weren't, but the feeling was the same. You spoke from the depth of decades, and they shrugged it off like a passing comment. It stings, and if it happens enough, you might pull back, speak less, offer less. You might tell yourself, what's the point? But silence doesn't fix disrespect. It simply makes it easier to ignore you. So what's the solution? We begin by changing the emotional tone of your interactions. That doesn't mean becoming colder or more distant. It means becoming calmer, more intentional, and most importantly, more powerful in your presence. Power at your age doesn't come from force. It comes from grounded wisdom, from patience, from boundaries, from not chasing approval. Ask yourself honestly, have you been seeking closeness at the expense of respect? It's a common trap for older parents. You want to stay involved. You want to stay connected. So you soften your edges, laugh off dismissive comments, or accept being interrupted mid-sentence. But over time, this erodes your authority, not the authority to command, but the authority to be heard and valued. The first step in reclaiming respect is changing how you view yourself. You are not a relic. You are not fragile. You are not out of touch. You are a living archive of experience. You are a survivor of decades your children never lived through. You have seen recessions, wars, cultural shifts, and personal reinventions. You've failed and rebuilt, loved and lost, succeeded and started over. That doesn't make you perfect, but it does make you valuable. The way you see yourself sets the tone for how your children will see you. If you approach conversations with shame, apology, or neediness, your children will unconsciously treat you as someone to manage, not someone to consult. If you sit back and say nothing, they'll fill the silence with their own voices. But if you speak with calm certainty, not volume, not stubbornness, but quiet conviction. You remind them who raised them. Respect begins when your presence becomes undeniable. Not loud, not demanding, but steady, like a lighthouse. Not blinking for attention, but always shining. And that begins now. In the next section, we'll break down the key communication shifts that older parents can make to command more respect without saying a single harsh word. The biggest mistake parents make when trying to earn respect back from their adult children is talking more. More explanations, more justifications, more reminders of everything you've done for them. But respect doesn't grow from repetition. It grows from how you speak, not how often. Let's start with one simple truth. You cannot control how your adult children react, but you can absolutely control how you present yourself. This is where communication becomes power. Think of how respected figures in society speak, not politicians, true elders, a wise judge, a seasoned coach, a retired general. They don't argue or over-explain. They don't speak just to fill silence. They say little, but they say it with calm, clarity, and authority. You can do the same. Here's how. 1. Speak less, say more. When you speak, make your words feel deliberate. Don't rush. Don't plead. If you're offering advice, do it without emotional baggage. Not, you never listened to me, but I've been through something similar. Would you like to hear how I handled it? This simple invitation flips the power dynamic. You're not forcing advice. You're offering value and letting them opt in. 2nd, hold your ground with grace. Many older parents feel they must back down to keep the peace. But here's the thing, backing down too often teaches others they can walk over you without consequence. Instead, try firm kindness. I understand you see it differently, but I'm allowed to have my view too. I'm not here to argue. I just wanted to share what I've learned. These statements don't spark conflict. They end it with dignity. 3. Pause before responding. When your child says something dismissive, don't react emotionally. Pause, breathe, look them in the eye, then respond slowly, calmly. This pause, this stillness, commands attention. Try. That's an interesting take. I'll think about that. Here's where I'm coming from. Suddenly, you're not reacting. You're leading, and leaders are respected. 4. Use I statements, not you accusations. Saying you don't respect me puts them on defense. Saying I feel hurt when my opinion is brushed aside invites understanding. Remember, your goal is not to win, it's to connect. But connection starts with emotional honesty, not blame. 5. Don't chase. Approval. This is hard, especially for loving parents. But the more you try to prove your worth, the more you confirm the idea that you have something to prove, and that invites dismissal. Instead of saying, you never listen to me anymore, I used to be so important to you, try, I trust that you'll make your own choices. I'm always here if you want another perspective. This creates respect through restraint. You're not forcing anything, but your presence becomes a steady offer of wisdom, and your silence begins to speak volumes. 6. The power of boundaries. Sometimes respect isn't lost, it's given away. If your adult child raises their voice, interrupts you constantly, or uses guilt to control conversations, it's time to set a boundary, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. You might say, I won't continue this conversation if it turns disrespectful. Let's speak again when we can both listen. You're not threatening, you're honoring your own dignity. That's when they start to notice, wow, mom or dad is different now, stronger. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. When you change how you communicate, less reactive, more intentional, you create an emotional shift in your relationship. Your child may not change overnight, but they'll feel it. Suddenly, they're not speaking to the old parent who always nags. They're speaking to someone centered, quietly firm, someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to offer. In the next section, we'll go deeper into how to rebuild mutual respect by shifting your role from caretaker to mentor, and how legacy, not authority, becomes your new source of power. There comes a time in every parent's life when their role must evolve. When your child becomes an adult, they no longer need a manager, they need a mentor. But many parents don't make this shift. They continue offering advice like they used to when their kids were 10. They interrupt, they correct, they assume authority simply because they're older. And it backfires, because grown children don't respond to control, they respond to credibility. This is where your greatest opportunity lies. You can't force your children to respect you the way they once did, but you can earn a new kind of respect, one built on legacy, lived wisdom, and emotional presence. Let's talk about what that looks like. Stop competing with their adulthood. This may be uncomfortable to hear, but it's essential. Your child has their own life now, their own ideas, their own rhythm. If every conversation feels like you're trying to correct their choices, they will push back, not because they don't love you, but because they're trying to define themselves. So let go of being right. Focus instead on being respected. And that doesn't come from correcting, it comes from reflecting. You are not in competition with your child's growth. You are the roots beneath it. Lead by example, not explanation. If your child rolls their eyes at your financial advice, don't get louder. Get quieter and stronger. Let them see how you live, how you manage your money, how you treat others. That unspoken leadership speaks louder than any lecture. You want to talk about relationships? Show them how you treat your spouse, your friends, the waiter at lunch. You want to talk about discipline? Let them see your morning walk, your organized home, your ongoing learning. You don't need to say, "This is how you should live." Instead, let your actions say, "This is how I live, and I'm proud of it." That kind of integrity earns quiet admiration, even if they never admit it out loud. Start conversations with curiosity, not correction. Too often, older parents fall into the trap of leading with judgment. Why would you do that? That's not how I raised you. Even if you're right, this kind of approach shuts people down. Instead, lead with curiosity. Try. What made you choose that approach? That's interesting. Tell me more about how that works. This doesn't mean you agree. It means you're willing to understand before being understood. And that simple shift often opens the door to your children seeking your wisdom in return. Talk about legacy, not lectures. What stories do your children actually know about you? Do they know what it felt like to work 3 jobs in your 20s? To lose someone you loved and keep going? To raise them with less money than they realize? Legacy builds respect, and legacy is not what you tell them. It's what you share. Don't just say, "You don't know how hard I worked." Instead say, "You know, I never told you this, but when you were 3, I came home from a night shift, held you while you slept and cried because I didn't know how I'd afford the rent. But we made it." That kind of honesty leaves a mark. It's not about guilt, it's about perspective. You're not just their parent anymore. You're a living, breathing history book. And history commands respect when told the right way. Own your wisdom without pushing it. You've lived decades. That's not a small thing. You've made mistakes, grown, learned, rebuilt, survived. When you speak from that place, not as someone trying to win the conversation, but as someone who's been there, your words carry weight. Instead of, "That's a stupid decision," try, "When I made a similar choice, it cost me more than I realized. I wish someone had warned me. I'm sharing this because I care, not because I think I know better." Now you're not nagging, you're guiding, you're not lecturing, you're revealing. And when your adult children begin to see you not as a critic, but as a source of rare insight, they'll start to lean in. This isn't about ego. It's about stepping into a new role, one that's quieter, wiser, and far more powerful. In the next section, we'll explore how to create emotional closeness that doesn't compromise boundaries, and how to stop over-giving in order to earn love or approval. Because sometimes respect begins when you give less and demand more from yourself. Love without boundaries is not love. It's sacrifice. And sacrifice, when unreciprocated, breeds resentment. This is one of the hardest truths for parents of adult children to face. The more you give without receiving respect in return, the more invisible you become. You give rides, you offer money, you babysit the grandkids, cook the meals, smile when they show up late or cancel last minute, and you tell yourself it's love. And yes, much of it is. But sometimes, deep down, you're hoping that love will be returned in the form of attention, appreciation, a thank you, a phone call, a little respect. When that doesn't come, it hurts. So you do more. Try harder. You think maybe if you give just a little more, they'll finally see you again. Not as someone to use, but someone to honor. But here's the secret most parents never hear. You don't earn respect by overgiving. You earn respect by having enough self-worth to stop. Let that sink in. Are you overgiving to stay relevant? Ask yourself honestly, do I say yes even when I feel used? Do I give money, time, or energy because I'm afraid they'll stop including me if I don't? Do I downplay my needs to avoid conflict? If so, your generosity may be rooted in fear, not love. And love based on fear sends the wrong signal. You don't have to respect me. I'll stay anyway. But what happens when you draw a line? You say, I'm happy to help, but I also need time for myself. I love watching the kids, but I'd appreciate a little more notice next time. I enjoy giving, but I want to make sure we're both valuing each other. Suddenly, you're not just the helpful parent. You're a person with needs, with boundaries, with expectations, and people respect those who respect themselves. Redefining emotional closeness. Many older parents confuse closeness with constant availability. They think if they're not always available, they'll be forgotten. But true closeness isn't built on convenience. It's built on connection. That means sharing stories instead of just running errands. Having meaningful conversations instead of always checking in about the kids. Asking how your child is doing emotionally, not just logistically. Letting them see your full self, your hopes, your hobbies, your ongoing life. When you start showing up as a whole person, not just a support system, they begin to relate to you as an equal. That's where respect grows. The power of no. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. It makes you real, and real people get listened to. If your adult child is asking too much, emotionally, financially, logistically, you are allowed to say, I love you, but I can't do that right now. I need a little more balance in how we're relating. Even if they push back, it sends a powerful message. You value your time. You value your energy. You are not a doormat. That message may cause discomfort at first, but it demands respect. Fill your own cup first. You want your children to see you as vibrant, worthy, wise? Then live like it. Pick up that hobby you've been putting off. Take the dance class. Join a book club. Travel. Volunteer. Create a life so full and rich that their respect becomes inevitable. Not because you asked for it, because they see it and they realize my parent is still growing, still living, still inspiring. That is magnetic. That is attractive. That makes them want to know you, not just rely on you. And here's the best part. When you start honoring yourself, you teach them how to honor themselves too. You show them what mature love looks like, what aging with grace and strength really means. In the next section, we'll dive into how to rebuild connection after years of disconnection, including how to handle guilt trips, defensiveness, and the silent treatment with quiet power and emotional maturity. Some wounds between parents and adult children aren't caused by shouting matches. They're caused by silence. A missed birthday, a cold response, a polite, short text that once would have been a warm phone call, and worst of all, the creeping feeling that you're walking on eggshells in your own family. You may wonder, what did I do wrong? Why do I feel like the bad guy every time I speak up? Why do I feel so dismissed? It's not just you. A growing number of older adults feel disconnected from their grown children, not because of dramatic blowouts, but because of a slow erosion of emotional closeness. But here's the truth. You can rebuild respect, even after years of tension, by handling emotional discomfort with calm power. And it starts by understanding the dynamics at play. When guilt is weaponized, sometimes adult children deflect your concerns by making you the problem. You express a hurt, and suddenly the conversation turns into, "You're always judging me. You never supported me the way I needed. I can't talk to you without being criticized." Suddenly, you're the one apologizing for trying to connect. This tactic, intentional or not, shifts the emotional burden back onto you. And when guilt replaces dialogue, growth becomes impossible. So how do you respond? First, don't react defensively. That only proves their point. Instead, stay grounded and say, "I'm sorry if it came across that way. That wasn't my intent, but I still need to be honest about how I feel." This does two things. It acknowledges their emotion without surrendering your own. It models mature communication, something many adult children haven't mastered yet. The silent treatment isn't power. It's a call for it. When an adult child pulls away, ignores calls, stops visiting, or gives the cold shoulder, it may feel like they're punishing you. But often, silence is not punishment. It's confusion. They may not know how to express their own feelings without conflict, so instead, they avoid. That doesn't mean you should chase them. In fact, chasing often backfires. Instead, try a different approach. "I sense some distance between us. When you're ready to talk, I'm here, with no judgment." Then let it sit. This shows quiet strength. You're available, but not needy. Present, but not pressuring. And that space often invites curiosity. Never argue with emotion. Acknowledge it instead. If your child is emotional or defensive, logic won't help. What does help is emotional fluency. Instead of, "That's ridiculous, you're overreacting," try, "It sounds like you're really hurt by what happened. I didn't realize it affected you that deeply." You don't have to agree with their version of events to honor their feelings. When you do that, you lower the emotional temperature. You become someone they feel safe with again. And safety is the foundation of respect, the secret power of written words. Some conversations are too emotionally charged for face-to-face. In these cases, a letter, handwritten or emailed, can be powerful. Not long, not heavy, just clear. Something like, "I know we've had some hard moments. I want you to know that I love you, and I also want us to have a relationship based on mutual respect. I'm always open to hearing how you feel, and I hope we can rebuild things slowly in a way that honors both of us." A letter creates space. It lets them absorb your words without feeling cornered. And it reminds them that you're not giving up, but you're also not begging. Detach from outcome, anchor in integrity. This is perhaps the most painful but most freeing truth. You cannot make someone respect you. You can only become someone who commands it. That means living with integrity even when no one acknowledges it. Speaking your truth without needing applause. Showing up as your full self even when others pull away. This isn't weakness. It's the kind of emotional maturity that eventually pulls others back in, not through force, but through quiet gravity. And if your child does come back around, and many do, they will return not just to a parent, but to an elder, not just to a supporter, but to a role model. Final thoughts. Legacy over approval. You don't need to be liked in every moment. You don't need your children's constant validation. What you need is to leave behind a legacy of integrity. The kind of legacy where people say, they lived with quiet strength. They didn't need to be loud to be powerful. They always knew who they were and never let anyone take that from them. Let that be your North Star, because when you live that way, respect doesn't just come back. It grows into something deeper, a lasting presence in your family's heart and memory. And that is what truly matters.